This is the start of the Montrose 745 ride, but before I show you the full video of the ride, I wanted to give you an introduction overview of the Montrose ride because it's one of the more complicated rides in terms of the choices for starts and short or long and all kinds of permutations. So before I show you the full video, here's an intro to what the ride is about. Hello, fellow bike rider, sports fans, and fitness fanatics. This is an essential overview of the Montrose Ride Saturday mornings, every Saturday morning out of South Pasadena, as you can see. It's a 45-mile ride, 2,000 feet of climb, takes about 2 hours. Now, there's actually 3 different sizes. There's 7:30 slow, 7:45 quick, or 8 o'clock fast. You need to be a good rider to do any of these rides, but you have to be especially good to do 7:45, and you need to be outstanding to do the 8 o'clock ride. Then there's a long and short version of this ride. You can see there's a shortcut there that I circled that allows you to skip some of the climbing, and it makes it considerably easier to go short rather than long. Note that the start is different from the finish. This causes people to ride their bikes to the ride rather than driving to it typically. But it starts in South Pasadena and it ends at Sierra Madre. The start is the Trader Joe's there on Mission Boulevard or Senior Fish on the left. I circled those two. They take that. They take Mission Road right up there to I forget what it's called. Then it finishes at Baldwin and Sierra Madre. Usually people hang out at the coffee shops there. There's a Starbucks. There we go. Starbucks people hang out on the right. There aren't any cliques. Everyone's friendly. You just join in and hang out with your friends. It's all good. It's a good ride. So I've highlighted the Montrose ride in terms of intensity here, and I've labeled it 1 through 10. And you might want to study this because these are the sections where you're likely to get dropped. Number 1 is speed work on Huntington Drive, and you can get dropped because the speeds oftentimes can hit 30 miles an hour there. Then there's a sprint, number 2 there next to a high school on Duarte Road. You won't get dropped there because there's usually kind of a casual regroup. It's so early in the ride, you get caught by lights, and so you're unlikely to get dropped there, even though you might get separated from the pack. Where you can get dropped again is on Arrow Highway number 3 because they pick it up pretty good there. They can have some fast speeds, and if you don't have good stamina, that can start to get to you. Number 4 there is going up Gladstone. If you opt to go long, you'll be going up Gladstone. If you don't go long, if you go short, you'll go straight there on Cerritos Boulevard, I think it is. But going up Gladstone can be quite demanding. And then you're kind of worn out from going up Gladstone. And then number 5, there's that kicker there called Kitchen, the Kitchen Hill Kicker. A lot of people get dropped there. Then you kind of go along and hopefully you get back on, or else you stay on, you maintain contact. You've got number 6 with the Valley View Climb. That's really not too killer, but you can get dropped there too because it's starting to take a toll. You got about 30 miles under your belt at that point and a fair amount of climbing now. Then at number 7 there's the thing called the Wall, and this isn't an especially terrible climb, but it can be demanding, and again the mileage takes its toll. You might not make it over that. If you make it through that, you make it all the way to the Winston Climb number 8, and the Winston Climb is kind of a short but somewhat steep climb, and you can get separated from the pack there. And then if you make it to 9, which is the Highland Oaks Grind is what I call it, that's an uphill finish, and now you're pretty tired because you've been going uphill for quite a while and you're working your way up that hill, and then people push hard, and it gets even harder when you go up Grandview as you're headed to the finish. So it's plenty challenging. Note that at the end it gets a little bit squirrely with the finish because 7:45 and 7:30 both turn a little bit early. They make a left early on Sierra Madre Boulevard. The 8 o'clock group goes up a little bit further and they make a left on Grandview. But the 730 and 745 take somewhat of a shortcut. It eliminates a little bit of the climbing, and it's just a little bit shorter, but it's still grueling, difficult, and challenging, and you won't be disappointed either way. All right, have fun.
Yeah, baby.
Where's the roller on the back?
I forgot it. I got up too early, too late. I mean, yeah.
Man.
Yo, baby. So yeah, I'll escort you guys. I gotta replace my battery so I can catch the action.
Wouldn't know you without a helmet and a jersey and shorts and a bike and all of that.
I'm gonna hang in the back. I might move to the front once in a while, but I'll mostly stay in the back.
They're in motopaces.
So I don't want to, break the stride.
No, you need that roller. You need to get a
roller.
Rich has.
Yeah.
That roller on the back, so you can just press right in.
Alan, hey. Dean.
How are you?
Dean. Well, it looks like it's the end of the Montrose Ride, and it looks like the 8 o'clock group is just starting to roll in, I think. I got to get out of here because I'm parked illegally. But yeah, it looks like the 8 o'clock group is coming in, so we'll get some videos of the finishers. And then I'm going to go home. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, 2017. Yeah, it goes 200 miles an hour.
I can't do leader bike, man.
Yeah, it's a handful. Yeah, hey. I'm sorry?
When are you going to post that?
Tonight.
On?
Yeah, YouTube. Look up Dean Huff.
Dean Huff.
Yeah. Yeah, I've ridden with you a bunch of times. I've ridden with you about 2 dozen times.
Okay.
I had stage 4 lung cancer, and so
wow.
I'm down for the count, but I'll be back out again. You know me, you just don't recognize me off the bike.
Well, you're in remission. That's great.
Yeah, I'm cancer free now, knock on wood. So, yeah, but look up Dean Huff, H-O-U-G-H. I got you prominently. I got everybody for the whole ride.
Okay.
All right, we'll see you.
All right.